Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel, and just an update today. I've got a lot of different things to talk about, so it may be a lengthy one, and I'll try. I've got a book haul, I've got reading update, I've got prize update, I've got a bunch of different stuff. So I thought I'll try and do some index markers in the description down below. So if you did want to skip around, then you can by all means do that. But what a week! A really busy week, and like as usual, this was meant to be a Friday reads, and it's now Thursday of the week after because I just suck at doing Friday reads, and I suck at keeping to a schedule. So apologies for that. But I've had a great reading week anyway. And what I've done is plenty of reading. I've actually DNF'd a book, which I don't do very often, so I'll tell you about that. And I've done another book haul. So I've been to a different shop. So let's kick off with what I DNF'd to get the bad stuff out of the way, because there's really not much bad stuff at all. So let's do that. I was reading on, where did I get this? A recommendation online, I think, for Alexis Wright, The Swan Book. Now, it's a really interesting premise. It sounded quite strange, which I like, and Australian, which I like, and wow, was strange as right. Let me try and get this explanation right about what this book is about. It's meant to be climate fiction, or in that sort of realm, but also, I think climate fiction. And it describes a future Australia that's been ravaged by climate change, and the remaining population has been pushed to pockets of the land. And it describes a group of people living in a swamp area on the edge of a desert, and that has come to be inhabited by black swans. And in this edge of the desert swamp area is the new Indigenous Prime Minister of Australia and his wife, who are two incredibly strange people. So I understood enough in reading what I read, which was about 70 pages. I understood enough to glean all that from the story, but that was difficult to comprehend, and so difficult that I got to page 70 and went, nah, I'm out. And it's one of those ones that I think I would find rewarding if I gave it my all and finished it. I think it would reap rewards. But right now, I think I'm going to put it down and maybe pick it up. I think I've said that before with other books, and I've never picked it up. I've never picked them up again. So we'll see how we go. But I'm going to DNF it. 70 pages, gone. But what I am reading, I picked it up from the library at the same time. I picked up Blueberries by Elena Savage, which is a book of essays. This is remarkable. There's been a few Australian booktubers who have done full reviews on this. I'm about halfway through, or maybe a little bit more, discussing issues such as rape and sexism, and a lot more. It's not just that. But wow, it really pushes the boundaries of what is considered story, and what is considered writing, and what is considered essay. It pushes the boundaries of that, because it plays around with structure and form. It plays around with punctuation and dialogue. It plays around with the chronology, and even in a small essay, it plays around with how the story arc is structured. And it's very non-typical. Some of it is poetry. I mean, there's one that talks about Allen Ginsberg, and Elena Savage has written it in poetry format, because she's talking about the poet Allen Ginsberg and her feelings towards him. And it makes it, my pauses are not for effect, but because I'm constantly thinking about this book as I work my way through it. It's amazing. I could do a video on each particular essay, because I can't encapsulate the whole book with a single explanation. The one that I just finished, called Holidays with Men, and it was talking about getting her start in writing, where she wrote for a zine, a fanzine, where she was writing vignettes and small stories in zines, and that's how this writer got her start in writing. But it's written in the format, if you can see it, it's written in the format of dual columns, and with different typefaces for each column, kind of like a really dodgily presented zine, like a zine that's been hastily put together, a really quirky publication. So so one column is in large typeface and the other column is in small typeface and closely set. So you read one entire story in the small typeface, and then you go back to the beginning and you read the secondary story in the larger typeface, which is the way I did it anyway. But you could choose to do it in either direction. But it took me a couple of minutes of just scanning through that particular essay, going, how am I meant to tackle this? I thought, do I try and piece it together in some weird way and trying to get meaning out of it? And then I worked out that it was two separate things and I should just tackle one and then go back. And once I worked it out, it was okay. But it challenges you to think about how we absorb information, and it's great. Blueberries by Elena Savage. Please get hold of this wherever you can. It's so good. I'll be finishing that the next day or so. And then I got another one ready to pick up from the library, which I can't remember, so let's not talk about that. I did more on top of that. I think I've put up on my Instagram feed some of the literary journals and magazines that I subscribe to, and different times I race through them and I get through them and I finish them, I start new ones, and they just keep arriving in the mail. This is the newest edition of Meanjin, which is an Australian literary journal, comes out quarterly. I haven't finished the previous quarter, so this is winter 2021. I haven't finished autumn 2021 yet, so I've got to get cracking on literary journals and my magazine subscriptions as well. And then every time, my wife has a separate set of magazine subscriptions, which are great magazines in their own right. And every time we read something in each of our magazines that is of great value that we want to share, I end up reading some of hers, she ends up reading some of mine, and slows the whole process down again. Let's talk about Bookhaul, because I went to Bookhaul book purchasing. So let's do Bookhaul first, because Natalie from what's the name? Natalie Marie, what's the name of your channel right now? I can't remember. But Natalie enjoys going to one particular secondhand bookshop, and you see it on her vlogs all the time. I have always gone to a different one. We live in the same town, if you're not sure. I've always gone to a different one and have better success at another one, and I go to the one that Natalie prefers to go to less often. But they had a sale on last week, so all of their secondhand charity books were $1. Generally, when I've gone there, I find one book that I want to buy, and I always feel bad that I'm going to a charity shop and buying one book for $1. And when really, should I just give them $5 or $10? They're a charity shop. So I went a little bit apprehensive to the book sale, thinking I'd maybe find one thing or nothing, and came away with another 5 books, which is great, and all in great condition. I mean, you're not buying ratty, horrible things. This is really, really good. First on the list that I found at this lovely secondhand bookstore is a copy of Brideshead Revisited, a Penguin version timed to the release of a British miniseries about the same book. I started reading Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh as part of a read-along with Matthew from Mayberry Book Club, and then got tied up in BookTube Prize reading and didn't get to finish it. I got about halfway through on ebook, but I was really enjoying it, probably more so than Matthew, actually. Matthew struggled with the writing style and keeping the story going. I found it very much enticing, and I thought it dealt with some very modern themes, considering it was a pre-war pre-war book. I thought it was dealing with some very modern themes. You would call it a modernist book from a distinctly conservative time. I think you could look at it that way, and I just fell in love with the story, even though I only got halfway through. So I was determined to get back to it, and then I saw this and I thought, that'll get me back into it. So I got a physical book, Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. Wonderful if you've never read it. Another author I've read a couple of times in the last year, Life After Life and something else. I can't remember. One last year, one this year. Kate Atkinson, and this time they had Case Histories, which is the first Jackson Brodie novel, who is Kate Atkinson's serial-style detective novels. And I've been captivated by Kate Atkinson's way of telling mysteries and mystery stories and the characters that she portrays. So I was very happy to find this. I'm glad that I'm going to keep going on my Kate Atkinson journey. Don't you hate that term? Another author that I've never read and probably should is Elena Ferrante, and this is the one that everyone talks about. It's her first, I think, My Brilliant Friend is her first novel that to great acclaim, and this is the one that everyone talks about. Elena Ferrante, My Brilliant Friend. I didn't even read the back. I just thought, everyone talks about this book, I should buy this book. So I bought this book for $1. Rich and generous-hearted story about Elena and Leela, who grew up together in the 1950s in a poor neighbourhood on the outskirts of Naples. Excellent. And another author that I've got one or two books on my shelf already, but have never read, is Zadie Smith. But what I don't have is, again, her most important, most well thought of book is White Teeth. I didn't have that on my shelf, so I'm still determined to read Zadie Smith to see what all the fuss is about, so I've got Zadie Smith. And finally, a non-fiction. Science writing, nature writing is the stuff that I've really enjoyed in my non-fiction in recent times. And this has been referred to, if you're going to read science writing, then this seems to be one of the seminal works that people really, really enjoy. It is Guns, Germs and Steel by Jared Diamond. And I love the tagline underneath, a short history of everybody for the last 13,000 years. Awesome. So they're my 5 pickups from a charity bookshop that I usually have zero success with, and it was amazing. So I'm very, very happy with that. Book purchases. There are three. One, the Pulitzer was announced last week, and the Pulitzer doesn't announce the shortlist, so it's not a prize where they announce a long list and a short list and books in consideration. Not from what I could see on their website, at least. All of a sudden, on June the 11th or whenever it was, they just say, here's the winner, and here's the other 2 that we were looking at. I went, okay, thanks. Then this is the winner, Louise Erdrich, The Night Watchman. Again, not an author I've read before. And when I saw it at the bookshop, I thought, yes, I should read the Pulitzer winner. I am a big fan of Colson Whitehead, who has won the Pulitzer for both The Nickel Boys and Underground Railroad, I do believe. Underground Railroad was spectacular. The Nickel Boys, not so much spectacular. It was still pretty good. So I'm keen to see what the Pulitzer Prize panel made of Louise Erdrich and why they thought it should be considered and why it won. So I'm happy to give this a shot. Louise Erdrich, The Night Watchman. And my final purchase. Where did it go? My final purchase I have left in the other room. I'll be back in a minute. And thank you for your patience. The final purchase, I went to a book premiere. Is that what you call it? Book release, book something or other, at a theatre in Brisbane. Now, I don't live in the state capital. I live in a smallish town, smallish city, 150 k's from the state capital. So getting to these author events and book releases sometimes a little bit problematic, but this one I felt I needed to go. I took my wife with me. It is a book I reviewed last year where I was lucky enough to receive an advanced reader copy for a book called Eggshell Skull by Bri Lee, who is an ex-lawyer, and in this book talks about the deficiencies in the legal system when it comes to accusations of sexual abuse and rape. Incredible book. And she followed it up with, where is it? This one, a smaller volume called Beauty, which I think you would class as an essay, an extended essay. Bri Lee, Beauty. And when listening to her speak the other night, she always intended to follow up Beauty with another essay called Brains and Balance It, about, this is all about body image and how we think of ourselves and how other people view us based on our appearance. And she always meant to follow this up with another essay called Brains, all about how we consider people smart or otherwise based on their education, based on their social class, social standing, and all those kinds of considerations. When she started researching the follow-up to this one, she found that it was absolutely worthy of a book, so wrote a book. And it is called Who Gets to Be Smart by Bri Lee, and it's a pretty vicious dismantling of the Australian education system. I won't say much more than that. And so I've read Eggshell Skull already. My wife is currently reading that. And then we're both going to read Beauty and Who Gets to Be Smart. So the book release was fantastic. We had an hour listening to a panel discussion with the author. And then we had an opportunity to have our books signed and to purchase the ones that we didn't already have. So it was a wonderful night. And if wherever you are in the world, if you get an opportunity to go to reader events like that, either through your local bookstore or through publishers or just large or small events, please take that opportunity, because meeting these authors is a wonderful experience. They are people just like us. And they're the reason why we're here. They're the reason why we have these channels and spruik books all the time. And you'll find that there are communities of people that go to these things, and you'll make friends. It's a lovely way to make friends. I got lots of friends from these communities, these book release communities. It's great. The wonderful people at Avid Reader Bookshop in Brisbane, which I think I've mentioned before, are the ones that create a lot of these events, especially in Brisbane. So if you're anywhere near Brisbane, you should do that. And the events that they put on are amazing. So, in total, 3 books from Bri Lee. I already had one, and I bought the other 2. That's it for book purchases and stuff, and the things that I'm reading right now. Let's talk about audiobooks, because the last time we spoke, I was just finishing up My Dark Vanessa, and I finished it, and it's incredible. It's incredible. I think I said all I wanted to say last time. I don't think my judgment changed on it. It's a remarkable book with some very dark subject matter, and it may not be for everybody. I mean, the same with, I think that there was a criticism a couple of years ago of my beautiful, what's it called? No, My Beautiful Friend. I can't remember what it's called now. About that just showed very graphic content about this subject, about child sexual abuse and child endangerment and all that sort of stuff. And this is a very similar. So if that subject matter is difficult for you, then maybe this isn't the book for you. Or but it is an amazingly written book. And I didn't realise until I got to the end of the audiobook, and the only extra thing I need to say about this book is when I got to the end of the audiobook, there was a very long section with an interview with the author. And I thought, great, that'll be interesting. What it was, though, was a personal response from the author about her personal experience of sexual assault. And it was prompted by similar accusations that Janine Cummins had in promoting the book American Dirt. Now, American Dirt received an awful lot of fanfare and an awful lot of hype, and a huge deal was made over Janine Cummins writing about the Latin American experience without herself being Latin American. And I did talk about this on this channel because I felt that people were reading too much into American Dirt, that it wasn't the next great American novel, not even close. What it was an exciting tale of a family's escape from danger. Like it was, that's it. And if you read it just like that, an exciting tale, it's a pretty good piece of entertainment. And that's the terminology I used in my previous video. Anyway, back to My Dark Vanessa. Apparently the author received similar concerns about My Dark Vanessa as Janine Cummins received about American Dirt, in that how can you write about sexual abuse and sexual assault without having been a survivor of sexual abuse and sexual assault yourself? And I think at the urging of the publishers, she's added this section to, I haven't seen a physical book to know whether that's there as well, but it was certainly at the end of the audio book where she discusses her own experience in not a great deal of detail, only to clarify that the reason for writing the novel is because I had this personal experience of sexual abuse myself. Can't we just take this book, which is hard to read with difficult subject matter, can't we just take this book for what it is and think that the author has researched this topic to the best of their ability and written something incredibly informative and engaging about a particular topic like sexual abuse, without having to ask the author to trawl through their very personal history to confirm that they're a survivor of that same sexual abuse. I think that's a horrible thing to put an author through. Really. For our own satisfaction, I think as readers, I think that's an awful thing to put an author through. Can't we just trust that the research they've done and the experiences they've had have led them to writing this book, and that's enough? Standing all on its own, the book was incredible. Finishing that, because I have spoken about My Dark Vanessa before, spectacular. Finishing that, I'm now reading Fake Accounts by Helen Ollier. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Ollier, I'm not sure. I'm butchering it no matter what. But Fake Accounts is excellent, and I'm almost finished with this one as well. Not sure what I'm going to do after. But in audiobook, it works really well, because think of conversations, interactions you have on social media and how they're short and sharp, and sometimes they're at the extremes of emotion. So you can tell when someone is at one extreme, you can tell when it's completely devoid of emotion, and the book is written that way as well. And in audio, you really get that sense. And it tells the story of a main character who's dating a man called Felix, and over the space of a short period of time while they're dating, she gets the impression that something is different about their relationship. So she looks on his phone, and what she expects to find is pictures of naked women or chat histories with other women. And what she finds instead is that he has created a fake account on Instagram to spread these horrible conspiracy theories that she knows to be fake. She knows that these conspiracy theories are complete nonsense, but for some reason her boyfriend that she trusts and loves is a proponent of these conspiracy theories online and just spewing all this horrible hate and horrible nonsense. And it's in the time of pre-Trump, so we're looking, the period we're talking about is just before the inauguration. So he's already been, Trump has already been elected, and it's just before the inauguration when she finds this out. I won't give too much else away apart from the fact that she goes to Berlin later in the book, and her life becomes almost like its own fake account. And so she ends up in a foreign land. She ends up obviously not speaking the language and talking to lots of new people all the time, but she ends up telling little lies, little white lies to almost everyone she meets about every part of herself, about what she does, what she likes, what her family, about family, her boyfriend, absolutely everything. For what reason, I'm not quite certain yet, because I haven't finished. And for what outcome, I don't know how it's going to finish either. I haven't really guessed. I haven't tried not to guess. But she's created this persona of herself that is not herself. She's a nice person. She's an intelligent person. She has a really interesting life all on its own. But for some reason, she feels the need in this foreign country to create a fake life, a little bit fake, for herself, where all of these untruths just get built upon themselves as she moves around Berlin. Super interesting. And the whole thing is written in very short sentence structures, and the emotion in the book is like social media. It's almost emotionless most of the time, unless it's just pure emotion. So it's pure hate or love, or emotionless, just like social media, because you can't really tell anything in between. And reading a book in that way, it's really quite confronting, and I think the author's done a magnificent job in making this work, because the main character speaks directly to the reader, not out of character or not as a narrator, but the main character of the book speaks directly to the reader. And I've read books like this before, where the main character at times has come out of the book and spoken to the reader, and it doesn't work. It feels clunky and it feels terrible. This doesn't. This feels perfect in every way. Like you get it. It is a conversation between the main character and me, and it feels like social media. It feels like someone is interacting with me, and it draws you in. It really does. And I keep thinking about this throughout the day when I'm not reading the book. It's so well done, because the author has really encapsulated what social media has the power to do, both good and bad, and to describe how social media works on our brains and on our relationships, on our conversations. I think it's magnificent. That is Fake Accounts by Helen. Oh God, I'm so horrible. Oh yeah, that is Fake Accounts. I have it on audiobook. I'll put a picture up here and you'll be able to see. My apologies. That is Fake Accounts by Lauren Oyler, Oyler, and I'm probably butchering the name. Anyway, moving on. And finally is the Miles Franklin. The Miles Franklin 2021 prize has gone to shortlist stage. So they've gone from 12 or 16 down to 6. Very, very exciting. The 6, I've read one, and I have another one on my shelf. That's it. So I really better find some others. That could be what I try and do after I finish Fake Accounts, is find one of these on audiobook to knock one over. The one I have read is The Rain Heron by Robbie Arnott. I've spoken about it plenty of times. Greg from Supposedly Fun has spoken about it, loves it. Good on you, Greg, because it is amazing. If Robbie Arnott doesn't win, I'm going to lose my stuff, because The Rain Heron is the best book of 2020, without a doubt. So, just my prediction, just a prediction. Number 2 is the one that I do have on my shelf that I will read as soon as I knock off one of these other books that I'm reading, and that is Luckies by Andrew Pipos. Put it up here. This book centres around Lucky, a second-generation Chicago-born clarinet-playing Greek man who finds himself in wartime Australia in the 1940s. Okay, interesting. There's a lot of mishmash of cultures there. That's Lucky's by Andrew Pippos. I'll be reading that before we find out the finalists, before we find out who wins. Other ones that I don't have on my shelf, and I hadn't planned, I haven't done any planning to read them, but I will. Once Natalie brings back her books to the library, I might be able to borrow one or two of these. That is, I'm only joking, Natalie. That is Amnesty by Aravind Adiga. There's quite a few authors on this list that you wouldn't at first look think they were Australian authors. I mean, obviously Miles Franklin is for Australian authors, not simply books written about Australia. And Aravind Adiga, who's written books, I can't remember the name of the book. He wrote a book about 9/11, I thought. But there's a few international authors here, or authors that either live in Australia now or who used to live in Australia, that write about issues overseas or don't write about Australian themes, and they still qualify. And one of those is Aravind Adiga with his book Amnesty, about an illegal immigrant living in Sydney having fled Sri Lanka 3 years ago. Danny learns that a client of his has been murdered, and should Danny come forward with knowledge he has about the crime and risk getting deported or say nothing? Interesting. So that's Amnesty by Aravind Adiga. Interesting theme when you're an illegal immigrant coming forward about a crime. You could out yourself as an illegal immigrant and end up losing the security you have. Yeah, interesting. The other one, At the Edge of the Solid World by Daniel Davis Wood. In a village in the Swiss Alps, a husband and wife find their lives breaking apart following the death of their firstborn. Okay. At the Edge of the World by Daniel Davis Wood. And The Labyrinth by Amanda Lowry. Maybe I have this. I think I have this somewhere. That sounds familiar. I may have bought it and then not done anything with it. I'll check. I'll let you know. Erica Marsden's son has been imprisoned for homicidal negligence. In a state of grief, Erica cuts off all ties to family and friends and retreats to a quiet hamlet on the southeast coast near the prison where he is serving his sentence. Interesting. And finally, The Inland Sea by Madeline Watts. Our young narrator finds that the world around her is coming undone. She works part-time as an emergency dispatch operator, tracking the fires and floods that rage across Australia during a year that grows increasingly unstable. Drinking heavily and sleeping with strangers, she finds herself wandering Sydney streets late at night as she navigates a troubled affair with her ex-lover. Okay, so all interesting tales and nothing really literary that sounds, completely vague. Most of them are interesting mysteries or family dramas or something, engaging. That's a good list. As I said, I've read one, got another one on the shelf, maybe a second that I can't remember buying, but maybe a second. And I'll aim to read as many as I can, as many as I can between now and the end. The other prize thing, and I've discussed the Pulitzer and I've discussed the Miles Franklin, but the other prize thing was the Booker International Prize winner has been announced, and that is actually next on my list in my Scribd app that I've created a little list for myself, and I think I might be reading that, and that is At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. So I think I'm going to give that a crack very soon. And congratulations, that sounds like an excellent book too. At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop, winner of the Booker International. That's it. That's quite an update. So hope you enjoyed that. That's been everything that I've done in the last little bit, ups and downs and audio and otherwise. Enjoy your day, wherever you may be, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.